The lecture hall on the orbiting station reeked of sterile air, pumped through recyclers so clinical it stung Samir's sinuses like a desert wind. 200 alien students filled the tiered seats, their elongated limbs, bioluminescent skin, and segmented eyes fixed on the holographic display glowing at the amphitheater's heart. A massive, toothy beast swam through the projection, a tan megalodon, its 20-meter bulk slicing through ancient Earth oceans with predatory grace. Professor Oak's voice droned, flat as his slate-gray skin caught the hologram's blue glow. "Here we see unmatched predatory efficiency," he said, gesturing at the shark's jagged maw. "Surely this is Earth's apex predator." A copper-toned Elathi shot up her hand, fingers splayed like a fan. "Incorrect," she declared. "The Tyrannosaur dominated terrestrial ecosystems." The debate erupted, alien voices clashing over claws and teeth, until Oak's owl-like eyes locked onto Samir, the lone human in the room. "Mr. Kadam," he said, mangling the name into a cough, "what is Earth's apex predator?" Samir straightened, a slow, primal smile spreading across his face, sharp enough to hush the hall. With a lazy thumb, he pointed at his chest. The lecture hall on the orbiting station reeked of sterile air, pumped through recyclers so clinical it stung Samir's sinuses like a desert wind. 200 alien students filled the tiered seats, their elongated limbs, bioluminescent skin, and segmented eyes fixed on the holographic display glowing at the amphitheater's heart. A massive, toothy beast swam through the projection, a tan megalodon, its 20-meter bulk slicing through ancient Earth oceans with predatory grace. Professor Oak's voice droned, flat as the slate-gray skin that caught the hologram's blue glow. "Here we see unmatched predatory efficiency," he said, gesturing at the shark's jagged maw. "Surely this is Earth's apex predator." A copper-toned Elathi shot up her hand, fingers splayed like a fan. "Incorrect," she declared. "The Tyrannosaur dominated terrestrial ecosystems." "Wrong," countered a Vexian, his obsidian skin drinking in the light. "The orca's cooperative hunting strategies outmatch both." Samir slouched deeper into his seat, biting back a grin. Here we go again, he thought. Every xenobiology class was the same circus. Show the aliens Earth's predators, and they'd bicker over fangs and claws like kids trading holocards. The debate ricocheted for 10 minutes, saltwater crocodiles, polar bears, even a bold claim for mosquitoes that earned a paint-stripping glare from Oak. Then the professor's dark, owl-like eyes locked onto Samir, the lone human in a sea of alien anatomy. "Mr. Kadam," Oak said, mangling his name into something like a cough. "You've been silent. Care to share the Terran perspective? What is Earth's apex predator?" The hall fell silent. 200 pairs of eyes, some compound, some glowing, swiveled to him. Samir straightened slowly, like a panther rousing from a feigned nap. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he flashed a smile, not the polished, diplomatic one from the orientation vids, but something primal, sharp, and unsettling. Then, with a lazy thumb, he pointed at his chest. Laughter erupted. A Gorno in the front row snorted, a sound like a chainsaw drowning. The Zathi who championed the T-Rex vibrated with amusement, her scales clicking. Oak's tongue flicked, unimpressed. "Fascinating," he said dryly. "Mr. Kadam believes he is Earth's apex predator. Care to elaborate? I presume you don't mean you could wrestle a megalodon." Samir stood, all 170 centimeters of him dwarfed by the towering aliens. His jumpsuit, stained with coffee and yesterday's lunch, looked as threatening as a rumpled blanket. Yet his voice carried, soft but steady. "You're all hung up on teeth," he said, stepping toward the hologram. "That's the wrong metric." Oak's head tilted, resembling a puzzled owl. "Enlighten us, then. What's the correct metric?" Samir sauntered to the front, hands in his pockets, each step deliberate, unhurried, like a predator who knew he didn't need to run. He stopped just shy of Oak's personal space, glancing at the megalodon's frozen snarl. "The apex predator doesn't just win fights," he said. "Any brute with enough teeth can do that. The apex predator wins the evolutionary war. The room stilled. Oak blinked. Go on. Samir's grin widened, reckless and alive. It's the species that burns a forest to flush out prey. The one that's wasteful, magnificently, catastrophically wasteful, because it can afford to be. It doesn't just survive the future. It builds it, breaks it, remakes it. A Vexian, not the obsidian one, but close enough, raised a claw. You're saying humans are apex predators because of environmental destruction? Samir turned, his gaze sweeping the class. I'm saying every other predator on Earth evolved to fit an ecosystem. Humans. We looked at ecosystems and said, cute. But what if we built a city here instead? Nervous laughter rippled through the hall. We didn't evolve sharper claws, we made guns. Didn't grow thicker fur, we skinned animals and wore them. Couldn't see in the dark. We set things on fire until dark wasn't a problem. He nodded at the station's artificial lights. Every other species adapts to the world. We make the world adapt to us. And when it won't, we build a new one. Primitive, someone muttered from the back. Samir's head snapped toward the voice, his intensity making students flinch. Is it? He asked, voice low, dangerous. You're sitting in a space station, light years from your homeworlds, breathing air your ancestors couldn't dream of, eating food your stomachs evolved for a different sun. And why? Because someone, probably someone a lot like me, looked at the void of space and thought, I bet we could put a university here. The room was a held breath. Oak cleared his throat, a sound like gravel in a grinder. An intriguing philosophical stance, Mr. Cadam, but this assignment calls for biological advantages, not cultural speculation. Biological? Samir pulled out his battered multi-tool, flicking open its knife blade with a soft snick. The small, glinting edge looked laughable in the vast hall, yet it held every eye. This isn't claws or teeth. It's us. We don't just kill. We create. We destroy. We reshape. That's why we're the apex, not because we're the strongest, but because we decide what strength means. He snapped the blade shut, pocketing it as he met Oak's gaze. And that, Professor, is why the answer's me. The lecture hall buzzed with tension as students shifted in their seats. Samir held up a sleek, glinting knife, its edge catching the artificial light. This is steel, he said, his voice low but commanding. Forged from rocks we ripped from the earth. Show me a biological trait that beats the species that looked at lightning and thought, I'll harness that for my home. With a sharp click, he folded the knife shut, the sound slicing through the heavy silence. But sure, let's talk biology. Humans, he explained, were persistence hunters. Gazelles could outrun them, but not outlast them. We don't sprint like predators. We endure. We chase for hours, days, relentless. Other animals hide from the sun, we sweat. They need a quick kill or they starve. We pack a lunch and take our time. A student from Ken raised a trembling hand, but Samir cut in, his eyes gleaming. You want to know what human kids do for fun? They play tag. They chase each other until someone tires out, except humans don't tire like other animals. We turned our hunting strategy into a game because we're that good. It's literally playtime. The room fell deathly quiet. Even Professor Oakes, usually unflappable, seemed rattled. Samir's voice dropped to a whisper, yet it carried to every corner of the hall. The apex predator isn't the one with the sharpest claws or biggest teeth. It's the one that sets the rules. The one that decides which species live and which end up in museums. The one that looks at a billion-year-old ecosystem and says, I'll reshape this. He turned to Oakes, tapping his chest. So, when you ask who Earth's apex predator is, it's the species having this debate in a tin can floating in space, because one planet wasn't enough. Silence stretched, thick and sticky. Oakes finally spoke, his voice unsteady. An unorthodox view, Mr. Cadam, though perhaps skewed by bias. Before he could continue, a shrill alarm pierced the air. Every screen in the hall blazed with the same urgent message: ecological emergency. 10 a.m. Biodome. All senior staff report. Oak's large eyes widened further. Class dismissed, he barked, already halfway to the door. We'll revisit this next session. Students shuffled out, casting wary glances at Samir, who stood unmoved at the front. The hologram of a megalodon still loomed, its jagged teeth frozen in a snarl. Cute fish, Samir muttered to himself, smirking. Bet it couldn't fix a broken ecosystem. The projection flickered out, leaving his reflection in the dark screen. His smile deepened, a spark of defiance in his eyes. Time to see if the universe was ready for humanity's next move. In the maintenance corridor beneath Section C, the air reeked of industrial solvents and shattered dreams. Samir found Dale exactly where he expected, tucked in an alcove behind the water recyclers, clutching a mug of something that looked like coffee but smelled like engine grease. Dale, a Gorak with a face like carved granite, was the only one on the station who didn't treat Samir like a curiosity. To him, Samir was just another guy pulling a long shift. Thought you had class, Dale grumbled, his scowl as permanent as the station's hum. Got out early. Ecological emergency in the biodome, Samir replied, producing 2 Earth cigarettes, real tobacco, not the synthetic junk. Dale's face softened, just a fraction. You beautiful bastard, he said, accepting one. They lit up, smoke curling toward the vents as Dale's AI implant chirped. Reminder, smoking is prohibited in all university facilities. A healthy worker is a productive worker. Shut up, Gleed, Dale muttered, tapping the implant. It whined again, louder. New system. Upgraded last week. Part of the, he made air quotes with sausage-thick fingers, VexGen Total Environmental Integrity Package. He pulled out a spray bottle filled with clear liquid. Mandatory usage. Everything's gotta smell like a circuit board's funeral now. Samir took the bottle, sniffed it, and recoiled. The scent was an aggressive void, like his nose had been erased. That's awful. Tell me about it, Dale said. Been spraying it in the biodome all week. Plants hate it too, but nobody listens to the janitor. The implant chirped again, a clean workspace is a productive workspace. Your compliance is appreciated. I swear, Gleed, I'll take a wrench to you, Dale growled. They smoked in silence, the distant wail of another alarm joining the station's endless chorus of warnings. So, Dale said eventually, heard you gave Oak's class a show. Scared the hell out of those soft academics. What did you do, flash your knife? Samir grinned. Something like that. Told humans are the apex predators. Dale snorted, his laugh like gravel in a blender. Sure. And I'm a ballerina. No offense, but you couldn't take me in a fair fight, and I'm past my prime. Who said anything about fighting fair? Samir shot back, his smile sharp. Dale pointed with his cigarette. Now that's the smartest thing I've heard all day. Another alarm blared, lights flickering to amber. Dale's implant erupted in a mechanical fit. Alert, all maintenance staff, report to Section A. Alert, all maintenance staff, report to Section A. Samir exhaled a plume of smoke, his eyes glinting with the same fire he'd shown in the lecture hall. Whatever was breaking in the biodome, he was ready to prove humanity's edge, fair or not. Hell yeah, I heard you the first time. Dell crushed his cigarette under his boot, the ember hissing out on the cold floor. With a grunt, he hauled himself up. Duty calls. Thanks for the smoke, Ped. Samir, grinning, held up the spray bottle, its contents glinting faintly under the flickering light. Mind if I keep this? Wanna see what's got everyone so spooked? Knock yourself out, Dell said, waving a dismissive hand. I got cases of that stuff now. He started toward the corridor, then paused, turning back. Hey, Samir, that thing you said about fighting fair. Yeah, that's why your kind freaks everyone out. It's not just your strength, it's that you're proud of cheating. The Goro vanished around the corner, his heavy steps fading, leaving Samir alone with the bottle and a rising wail of alarms. Samir tilted the spray bottle, studying it under the dim light. Clear. Odorless. Harmless. The kind of thing you'd never glance at twice. The kind of thing that could unravel an entire ecosystem before anyone noticed. He slipped it into his pocket and headed for the public observation deck. Time to do what humans did best, cheat. The Athenaeum's observation gallery was billed as a tourist hotspot, but Samir had never seen a single tourist there. Just a sleek wall of transparent aluminum framing the biodome below, benches that screamed, "Don't sit here," and informational plaques no one bothered to read. The low hum of life support blended with the squeak of shoes on polished floors. Today, though, the place was a zoo. Students, faculty, staff, everyone was pressed against the windows, watching disaster unfold in real time. The biodome stretched out below, 50 hectares of engineered paradise, now wilting, dying by inches. Samir elbowed through the crowd to a quiet corner. He pulled out his binoculars, real ones, optical, because sometimes analog beat digital, and started scanning. The Athelian flutter wings were supposed to be everywhere, flitting from flower to flower, spreading pollen, keeping the whole system alive. The biodome's glossy brochures called them an ecosystem cornerstone species, which was just a fancy way of saying, if they die, everything dies. And they were dying. Through the canopy, Samir spotted the Vexigen response team in their hazmat suits, moving with the polished confidence of people who had no clue what they were doing. They swept nesting areas, ran scans, took samples, finding nothing because they were looking in all the wrong places. An hour in, Samir's back ached from leaning against the window. 2 hours, and he'd sketched a dozen clusters in his notebook, each one tucked in the shadow of a ventilation intake. This wasn't a pathogen. Pathogens spread chaotically. This was avoidance. He traced lines from vents to clusters, mapping a predator's kill zone defined by an invisible scent. 3 hours of patient observation later, the pattern was undeniable. While the crowd around him buzzed with gossip about system failures and pathogen theories, placing bets on when the university would call in off-world experts, Samir saw the truth. The flutter wings weren't in their nests. They weren't at their feeding stations. They weren't dead on the ground. They were hiding, crammed into ventilation intakes high in the dome's superstructure, dozens, maybe hundreds, packed into spaces barely big enough to hold them. Not moving. Not feeding. Just hiding. Huh, Samir muttered to himself. Find something interesting. The voice was smooth, confident, and belonged to a young Vexian woman, probably a grad student. Her obsidian skin gleamed with the kind of polish that screamed money and good genes. Her designer clothes cost more than Samir's scholarship. The kind of person who'd never had to bum a smoke from a janitor for intel. Maybe, Samir said, not looking up. She stepped closer, her alien perfume, expensive, sharp, cutting through the air. I'm Xra. Xra Ashi. My family's company is handling the remediation. If you've seen something useful, maybe share it with someone who can actually do something with it. There it was, that silk-smooth superiority. We're the experts. You're just some primitive on a scholarship. Samir lowered his binoculars. Your people are looking for a disease. Because it is a disease, Xra said, her tone clipped. The symptoms clearly. They're not sick, Samir cut in. They're scared. Silence. Then a laugh, sharp as shattered crystal. Scared? The insects, mister. Get real. And they're not insects, they're more like hummingbirds. Telepathic hummingbirds that see in ultraviolet. Samir adjusted his binoculars, focusing on a cluster. Look where they are. Not random. Not near food sources. They're hiding near the ventilation intakes. That proves nothing, Xra said, crossing her arms. Except maybe. When's the last time you were scared? Samir interrupted. Not nervous about a test or stressed about a deadline. Scared like something was going to eat you. Xra's perfect composure cracked, just a hair. I don't see how that's relevant. Humans have this leftover bit of evolution, Samir said. When we're terrified, we get small. Hide in corners, under things, in closets. It's stupid, a closet won't stop a predator, but we do it anyway. For 1,000,000 years, getting small kept us alive. He lowered the binoculars, meeting her dark eyes. Your flutter wings are doing the same thing. They're not sick. They're terrified. The question is, of what? That's ridiculous, Xra said, her voice tight. There are no predators in the biodome. It's a controlled environment. Perfectly controlled. Samir pulled the spray bottle from his pocket. Your family make this? She glanced at it, dismissive. Our consumer sanitation division. What does that? When did they start using it? His tone made her step back, just enough. 2 weeks ago, she said. Part of a new maintenance protocol. It's completely harmless. We ran extensive tests. On flutter wings? Samir asked. Or just standard toxicity panels? Xra hesitated. Samir turned back to the window, holding up the bottle. Here's a fun fact about Earth. We have flowers that evolved to smell like female wasps. Males come looking for a mate, get covered in pollen instead. A reproductive hack, all based on smell. He could see her reflection in the glass, processing. Now, what happens if you accidentally create a smell that mimics something else? Not a mate, but a predator. The chemical's odorless to you, to me, to your test species. He held the bottle higher, its aggressively nothing smell crawling up his sinuses, itching. The scent of the cleaning solution was deceptively benign, like a predator lying in wait. What if it mimicked the stench of something that devoured flutter wings? Kasra froze, her polished demeanor cracking. That would be catastrophic, she whispered, voice raw. Samir capped his binoculars, meeting her gaze. Her eyes flicked to the bottle, then to the dying biodome sprawling below, its vibrant greens fading to sickly browns. I need to make some calls, she said, resolute. Do that, Samir replied, watching her turn to leave, then pause. Why are you helping? This could ruin my family's legacy. Samir's smile was sharp, the first genuine one since he'd set foot on this sterile station. Because that's what apex predators do. We spot a problem. We fix it. Not because we must, but because we can. Kasra strode off, her steps charged with the kind of purpose that promised someone's very bad day. Samir lingered at the window, eyes on the flutterwings huddled in their artificial caves, trembling for a predator that wasn't there, yet. Professor Oak's office was a battlefield of organized chaos. Towers of actual books, relics of a bygone era, fought for space with datapads, specimen jars, and a skeletal thing with far too many legs. Behind a desk that might have been wood or a clever imposter, Oak's magnified eyes glared through reading lenses. Absolutely not, he snapped before Samir could finish. Mr. Kadam, do you grasp what you're asking? The biodome is worth more than some planets. We have the galaxy's finest minds, degreed, experienced, insured, tackling this. Your experts have had 2 weeks, Samir countered, pointing toward the collapsing ecosystem. It's still dying. Because the pathogen's not isolated yet. These things take time. It's not a pathogen. Samir leaned in, voice steady. 3 hours with basic binoculars told me that. Maybe your experts should try looking up from their sensors. Oak's too long, too thin fingers drummed the desk. Based on observation. You're asking for access to confirm a hunch. 12 hours, Samir pressed. If I'm wrong, you lose a half day. If I'm right, your biggest corporate partner's been poisoning the biodome. Oak yanked off his lenses, scrubbing them with furious precision. Do you understand the fallout? Lawsuits. Review boards. A congressional inquiry into how a human student saw what our scientists missed. I understand that in 48 hours, there might be no biodome left to argue over. Silence fell, broken only by the rhythmic tick of something, maybe a clock, maybe an alien mimic, hidden in the walls. Oak spoke, slow and deliberate. You were wrong in class about humans being apex predators. Omnivores, not carnivores. Not even tertiary consumers in most systems. Your entire argument was flawed. Samir waited. Oak wasn't done. But, the professor continued, you were right about one thing, humans don't follow rules, biological, social, or sensible. It's unnerving. Is that a yes? It's a, sign every waiver my legal team can dream up. It's a, breathe wrong on a protected species, and I'll have you expelled and deported. But yes. Oak's sigh was like a tire deflating. 12 hours. Basic tools only. No meddling with the remediation team. Observation only. And if this is some stunt to prove your absurd predator theory, you'll be the damp human sulking in the back of my class again. Samir stood, unfazed. I'm not wrong. Confidence, Oak muttered, already pulling up waiver forms. Another unsettling human trait. Entrant 70600. Bring your primitive tools. And Mr. Kadam? That smile of yours, it's disturbing. Stop it. Samir's grin only widened. No promises. At 0600, the biodome was a cathedral of fading light, morning rays weaving gold and green through a canopy that whispered of decay. It should have buzzed with flutterwing songs and chittering life. Instead, only the hum of climate control and desperate machinery filled the void, trying to resuscitate a dying world. Samir slipped through the service lock, a single pack slung over his shoulder. The Vexen guard shot him a look reserved for the mad or the doomed, maybe both. The smell hit first, not death, not yet, but close. A green scent turning sour, the chemical scream of stressed plants. Samir pulled out his notebook, real paper, for sketching what sensors couldn't catch, and moved past automated feeding stations, their sterile clicks echoing in the silence. The biodome was a tomb, and he was here to find its killer. 12 hours. One chance to prove the apex predator wasn't just a theory. The biodome hummed with the ghosts of visitors who'd never show. Sugar water fountains gurgled uselessly, their sweet streams glinting under artificial light. Interpretive signs, in 6 languages, preached the fragile harmony of this man-made ecosystem, none daring to admit how utterly it had unraveled. Dodging the Vexen team was child's play. Their grid searches, precise as clockwork, missed the soul of the place. Samir slipped the other way, down maintenance paths and shadowed service corridors, his boots seeking the quiet corners where secrets hid. 2 hours later, he found them, a cluster of flutterwings, crammed 30 meters up in a ventilation shaft. Their iridescent wings overlapped like shattered stained glass, trembling in a silent pact. He sat cross-legged below, notebook open, watching. No feeding, no flitting, just shivers rippling through them, like leaves caught in a storm's breath. Not sick, he muttered, scribbling. Roosting pattern consistent with anti-predator response. But what were they hiding from? His mind drifted to earth, deer freezing at a wolf's scent, mice still under a hawk's shadow, humans cowering in caves, sniffing death in the air. Knowing was one thing, proving it was another. For 4 hours, he and Griff mapped every cluster, every terrified creature wedged into impossibly tight spaces. The pattern emerged, sharp and undeniable. The flutterwings weren't scattered randomly, they were avoiding the main ventilation outputs, where the acrid stench of Dale's circuit board funeral cleaning solution hung heaviest. By noon, Samir's notebook brimmed with sketches of stress postures, cluster locations, and behavioral notes, old-school fieldwork that sensors couldn't touch. He was settling in to study a dense cluster when heavy, mechanical footsteps echoed behind him. Not subtle. Human. Samir turned. The Gornak maintenance worker, built like Dale but younger, hefted an industrial sprayer that screamed military grade. "Depends who's asking," Samir said, eyeing the red coveralls. "Dale sent me. Said you'd want to see this." Griff raised the sprayer. New solution. Emergency protocol. Samir stood, slow and deliberate. Manufacturer. Same. Different formula, though. Supposed to be better, full coverage or some nonsense. Griff shrugged. Boss says spray everything twice. Unions thrilled, double shifts. My back's not. Let me see. Samir took the sprayer, sniffed. Same clear liquid, that aggressive nothing, but now with a sharp, chemical bite. They made it stronger, he said, handing it back. That's good, right? Kills whatever's making them sick. They're not sick. Samir's voice was steel. Where do you start? Section C, systematic, top to bottom. The highest concentration of hiding flutter wings. If Griff started there. How much do you like your job? Griff's Gornak face was unreadable. Why? Because I'm about to ask you to do something that might get you fired. Samir grinned. Dale said you'd say that. Griff set the sprayer down. He also said you gave him real cigarettes. Earth ones. Might have a few more. Then I'm listening. Finding a calm flutterwing took another hour. Samir spotted one in the quarantine section, a smaller dome, sealed for 6 specimens. This one, isolated before the crisis with a minor wing injury, moved like nothing was wrong, flitting between flowers. There's your proof, Griff said, peering through the observation window. Only one not exposed to the cleaning junk. Proof's not enough, Samir replied. Need a demonstration. He'd rigged a contraption that would have given his university's ethics board a heart attack, a cloth soaked in the original cleaning solution, tied to a pole cobbled from maintenance tools. Crude, but it worked. You sure about this? Griff asked. Nope. But certainties for people with better options. They slipped through the quarantine airlock. The flutter wing, palm-sized with wings like oil on water, barely noticed them, its proboscis deep in a flowering vine. Samir extended the pole, placing the cloth 3 meters upwind, far enough to avoid startling it, close enough for the scent to carry. 5 seconds of nothing. Then the flutter wing convulsed. Its wings snapped tight, proboscis retracting like it had been burned. A high, thin sound, barely audible, pierced the air, tripping every primal alarm in Samir's brain. The creature shot to a dark corner, wedging itself between support struts, still keening that awful noise. Holy shit, Griff whispered. Samir sealed the cloth in a specimen bag. It thinks there's a predator. The solution mimics some ancient pheromone, probably from a hunter long extinct. Doesn't matter. The fear's wired into them. He glanced at the hidden flutter wing. They're not sick. They're terrified. Starving rather than risk whatever they think's out there. Griff was already on his calm, gotta tell the boss. Wait. Samir grabbed his arm. Dale first. Document everything, times, dates, solutions used, locations. Build the paper trail. Why? Because in an hour, I'm accusing one of the university's biggest corporate partners of accidentally wiping out an ecosystem. Samir's smile was a blade. I want the credit to land where it belongs. The emergency faculty meeting felt like a funeral for someone nobody liked but everyone pretended to mourn. Samir stood at the front, still in his stained jumpsuit, facing a room of scowling professors. Professor Oakes, at the head of the table, looked like he'd aged a decade. Xra Ashi, the corporate liaison, radiated fury and fear in equal measure. Samir cleared his throat, notebook in hand, ready to light the fuse. Crisis in the biodome. The Varection family resemblance was unmistakable, sharp angles, skin darker than midnight, impossible to ignore in the sterile conference room. A corporate dynasty in full damage control mode, their tension crackled like static. "This is preposterous," barked an older male, likely Xra's father, his voice making her flinch. "Our products undergo rigorous testing on standard species." Samir cut in, undeterred, spreading his notebook across the table like a prosecutor presenting evidence. Hand-drawn sketches and meticulous observations sprawled across the pages. "Not on Italian flutterwings," he said coolly. "Testing every species is economically unfeasible, right?" He placed a sealed cloth at the table's center. "This is your product, diluted to standard concentration. It triggers an immediate panic response in flutterwings. They think it's a predator." "Based on what?" Xra's father scoffed. "One injured specimen. Based on 300 documented hiding clusters, all as far from ventilation outputs as they can get," Samir shot back. "Based on behavioral patterns matching anti-predator responses across 6 observation points. Based on the fact that the only flutterwing still acting normal in this facility is the one isolated before you started spraying." He flicked open his multi-tool, revealing a magnifying glass, a simple, ancient human invention. "Want to know what makes humans apex predators? This. We look closer. We write things down. We notice patterns. And when we find a problem, we fix it, not with million-credit sensors or AI analysis, but with patience, paper, and the radical idea that maybe we should watch what we're trying to save." Mr. Oak, the mediator, spoke with calculated neutrality. "Mr. Kadam, while your observations are interesting, we need more than anecdotal evidence." "I have work orders," came Griff's voice from the doorway. The Gorak looked out of place among the academics, clutching a data pad like a lifeline. Timestamps matching the emergency calls. All tied to Vexagen's mandatory usage directive. "I also ran my own test in Section F, sealed it off, no cleaning solution for 6 hours. Flutterwings started recovering. But the moment I sprayed one corner, they panicked again. Paper trails a mile long." Xra's father rose, slow and menacing. "You conducted unauthorized experiments in our client's facility?" "I conducted pest control," Griff said, unflinching. "Found the pest. It's your product." The Varection skin seemed to darken further, a physiological stress response, Samir noted, filing it away. "This is a conspiracy," the older man hissed. Samir's voice stayed calm, cutting. "The human is trying to save your client's ecosystem. The question is, are you going to help, or keep pretending your product doesn't stink?" "How dare you!" Xra's father snapped, but Xra's voice broke through, small but steady. "Dad, stop." All eyes turned to her. "He's right. I reviewed our testing protocols. We never checked for behavioral impacts or tested on species reliant on chemical communication. We were so focused on making it odorless to major species, we didn't consider," she trailed off, meeting Samir's gaze. "What do you need?" Her father's face could have curdled steel. "Xra, you don't have the authority." "I have the authority to prevent an ecological collapse that'd bankrupt us," she countered, her voice gaining steel. "Unless you'd rather explain to the board why we lost our biggest contract because you're too proud to listen to a human with a notebook." Silence hung heavy, taut as a wire. Samir broke it. "Clear the vents. Complete flush. Replace with something neutral. I've read about reintroducing wolves to Yellowstone on Earth. You don't just drop them in and hope. You manage the system." He ticked off points on his fingers. "Earth-based alternatives like vinegar, alcohol, or hot water won't trigger fear. Set up feeding stations away from cleaned areas. Use sound lures to draw them out, Flutterwings are social, they'll follow mating calls. That's it? Oak asked skeptically. That's your solution? The solution is to stop scaring them, Samir said. Everything else is details. He gathered his notebook. Oh, and next time you build a perfect ecosystem, maybe hire someone who's dealt with a real one. Earth's got billions of years of screwing them up to learn from. He headed for the door, pausing. Griff, want a job free of corporate nonsense? Earth's hiring. Mr. Kadam, Xra called after him. Why help us? You could have let it collapse, proved human superiority. Samir turned, his smile almost warm. That's not what makes us apex predators. Breaking things is easy, any fool with a big enough rock can do that. The apex predator understands the ecosystem enough to fix it. He left them staring at his notebook, its pages brimming with patient truths. Outside, the biodome was dying, but now they knew why, and how to stop it. 3 weeks later, the Athenium hummed with life. Samir sat on an observation gallery bench, watching flutterwings weave through flowers like living prisms, their wings thrumming their namesake song. Life was clawing back to normal in this tin can adrift in space. Admiring your handiwork? Xra's voice came from behind, her expensive shoes clicking distinctively on the station floor. Not mine, Samir said without turning. Just pointed out the obvious. She sat beside him, close enough for warmth, far enough for professionalism. The board recalled the entire product line. It's costing millions. Better than billions. My father disagrees. He's been relocated to our manufacturing division on Kepler 442b. 43 light-years from anything interesting. She pulled out a bottle, amber liquid, no cleaning solution here. Real Earth whiskey, pre-war. Gratitude. Samir took a sip, the burn perfect. I don't do corporate. I know. That's why I want you. She handed him a data pad. New division, practical ecosystem management. No lab coats, no computer models, just people who get that nature's messier than spreadsheets. Run by me, with autonomy and a mandate to hire who I need. She locked eyes with him, a spark of challenge in her gaze. Even smart-ass humans who think they're apex predators. Samir smirked, scanning the offer on the datapad. The salary was eye-watering, enough to make anyone pause. The jurisdiction. Not just the university, but 3 sprawling colony worlds, each a puzzle of ecosystems and chaos. The fine print was oddly sparse, almost too clean. Why me? He asked, voice low, probing. Casper leaned forward, her tone sharp but earnest. Because you were right. We've been obsessed with controlling environments, building perfect systems for 3 generations. But we forgot to understand them. Maybe it's time we learn from someone who spent 3 million years breaking them. A flutterwing alighted on the window beside them, its iridescent wings refracting the station's artificial light. It cleaned its antenna with delicate precision, fearless, as if it owned the place. Samir watched it, then turned back to Casper. I get to hire my own team, he said, folding his arms. Within budget, grief comes with me. The janitor. The one who documented everything and saved your asses. Casper's smile was sharp, approving. Done. And I need access to Earth's databases. All of them, the good, the bad, the catastrophic. Her brow arched. Why? Because humans have screwed up every ecosystem imaginable. Cane toads to eat beetles. Rabbits in Australia. Sparrows branded as pests, triggering famines. He slid the data pad back to her. If you want lessons from the apex predator, understand this, we're not apex because we're perfect. We're apex because we survived our own stupidity long enough to learn from it. Casper tilted her head. Is that a yes? Let's draw up the contract, and I'll think about it. Samir stood, stretching, his joints popping faintly. But first, I owe Dale a drink. And a smoke. Casper called after him. The professor wants to see you, too. Something about co-authorship on a paper, behavioral responses to chemical mimicry in flutterwings. Tell him thanks, but no. I don't do papers. He said you'd say that. Casper's grin widened. He's submitting it to the Journal of Xenobiological Sciences. Very prestigious. Still no. And he's recommending you for advanced placement in his xenobiology program. Samir paused, a slow grin spreading. That old bastard. He also mentioned next week's class, communication strategies in apex predators. Apparently, he's using you as an example. Of course he is, Samir muttered, but he was smiling now. Tell him I'll be there. Someone's gotta keep him honest. He sauntered toward the exit, hands in his pockets. Behind him, Casper called out, so, what really makes humans apex predators? Samir stopped at the door, turning to face her. Beyond the viewport, the biodome sprawled, teeming with life that had nearly been snuffed out by something as simple as the wrong chemical signal. We notice things, he said. We write them down. We learn. And when it all goes to hell, we're the ones who remember that sometimes the fix isn't some grand, complex scheme. Sometimes you just stop spraying fear and start playing love songs. That's it. That's everything. He gave a mock salute. Let me know about that contract. And, Casper. Next time your family wants to clean something, maybe ask what's living there first. He left her silhouetted against the thriving biodome, the station's usual chaos humming around him, alarms blaring for no reason, people rushing through corridors, civilization teetering on the edge of the vacuum. Samir pulled out his last Earth cigarette, studied it, then tucked it away. He'd save it for Dale. The old Gorak had earned it. Besides, he had a feeling Earth tobacco would soon be in demand, human solutions for cosmic problems, the apex predator's true calling. Not ruling the jungle, but keeping it alive, even if the jungle was a biodome and the predators were just scared of ghosts. At the main viewport on level C, Samir watched the gas giant below, a swirling masterpiece of storms and chemistry that made Jupiter look tame. The cigarette tasted like home, its smoke curling toward the atmospheric processors, no doubt tripping a dozen sensors. His comm buzzed right on cue. Security alert, unauthorized combustion, level C viewport. He grinned. Dale would have gotten the same alert, knowing exactly who was breaking the rules in this spot. A security drone zipped around the corner, red lights flashing like an angry ornament. Warning, unauthorized combustion of organic materials. Extinguish and accept your fine. Samir didn't flinch. Add it to my tab. Second warning, unauthorized combustion. Security unit, stand down. Professor Oak's dry voice crackled through the drone speakers. Override code Oaks, Alpha, 7. Mr. Kadam has discretionary privileges. The drone's lights flickered from red to green, hesitated, then zipped off to harass someone else. Samir took a slow drag, savoring it. Through the viewport, the Athenium's transparent dome glowed golden, flutterwings thriving inside, oblivious to how close they'd come to extinction. Thanks, Professor, Samir murmured to the empty corridor. Oak's voice, fainter now, replied through the comm, don't make me regret it. And Mr. Kadam, try to remember that being an apex predator doesn't mean you can smoke wherever you please. Doesn't it, though? Samir shot back, grinning. A pause, then Oak's voice, barely audible, I'll see you in class, Mr. Kadam. The comm clicked off. Samir finished his cigarette in silence, watching storms larger than worlds spin through their ancient dance. Tomorrow, there'd be meetings about the new job, paperwork for the program, probably another crisis to fix. But for now, he was just a human at a window, breaking a small rule because he could. Because sometimes, being an apex predator wasn't about grand saves or big gestures. Sometimes, it was knowing the rules bent just enough to let you stand there, watching the universe unfold, and trusting you'd find a way to keep it spinning. He stubbed out the cigarette, pocketing the butt, "Leave no trace, the Ranger way." He strode back into the station, boots echoing against the cold metal floor. Behind him, the universe churned in its endless dance, vast, uncaring, a cosmic sprawl of stars and void. Yet here, in this fragile tin can adrift in the infinite black, humanity had dared to carve out a foothold. Not with brute force, not with claws or teeth, but with something sharper, patience, curiosity, and the audacious belief that to understand something was to tame it. The apex predator moved through the corridors, his shadow trailing like a silent challenge. Around him, the station hummed, recalibrating, bending to his presence one subtle shift at a time. That's what ecosystems do when the top dog decides to stick around, they evolve. Conclusion. Samir strode back into the station, boots echoing against the cold metal floor. Behind him, the universe churned in its endless dance, vast, uncaring, a cosmic sprawl of stars and void. Yet here, in this fragile tin can adrift in the infinite black, humanity had dared to carve out a foothold. Not with brute force, not with claws or teeth, but with something sharper, patience, curiosity, and the audacious belief that to understand something was to tame it. The apex predator moved through the corridors, his shadow trailing like a silent challenge. Around him, the station hummed, recalibrating, bending to his presence one subtle shift at a time. That's what ecosystems do when the top dog decides to stick around, they evolve.